Busted! Do worms really prefer weeds over grass? Gardeners love worms, and for good reason. Earthworms are nature's underground engineers, tirelessly working to aerate soil, recycle nutrients, and boost plant growth. But one strange question has been circulating among gardeners lately: do worms actually prefer weeds over grass? It sounds unbelievable, but when you start looking at what worms need and how weeds behave, the answer might surprise you. Let's dig in, literally, and find out why your worm population might be secretly rooting for weeds instead of that perfect green lawn. To really understand what worms prefer, you kinda have to think like one. Earthworms live in a dark, moist world that's just packed with decaying matter. They actually thrive where the soil stays damp, the food is rich, and there's plenty of organic material breaking down all around them. Worms don't eat living plants. Instead, they feast on things like decomposing roots, leaves, and all that microbe-rich residue. Their absolute favorite meals are those rotting organic materials that are soft, loaded with microbes, and honestly, just super easy for them to digest. Now, let's compare a patch of compacted grass with a patch of weedy soil. Grass roots form these dense mats that actually repel water, limit airflow, and decompose really slowly. But weeds, on the other hand, have deeper taproots, break up the soil naturally, and shed organic matter way faster. That's basically an all-you-can-eat buffet for earthworms. Here's where it gets interesting. Many weeds actually improve soil conditions whether we like it or not. Dandelions, plantain, chickweed, and clover have deep or fibrous root systems that loosen hard ground and pull up nutrients from deep below. When those roots die or decay, they leave behind tiny tunnels and microbe-rich residues that worms flock to. Worms move into those spaces, feeding on decaying root tissue and enriching the soil with their castings, or worm manure. Grass, especially when heavily managed or chemically treated, doesn't offer this same benefit. Regular mowing leaves little organic matter on the ground, and synthetic fertilizers or weed killers destroy the microbial life worms depend on. So, in other words, worms don't actually love weeds for the plants themselves, they love the conditions that weeds create. You know, several gardeners and soil biologists have actually tested this theory. In side-by-side comparisons of weedy patches versus manicured lawns, the results were pretty clear. Worm counts were consistently higher in weedy or uncut areas. Why is that? Well, it's because weeds provide shade, which keeps the soil cool and moist, and those are a worm's two favorite conditions. Grass lawns, especially the ones kept short, end up exposing the soil to sun and evaporation, which dries out the top layer where worms like to live. So, while your lawn may look beautiful, it might actually be a worm desert compared to that messy, weedy corner of your yard. Don't panic. This doesn't mean you have to let your whole garden turn wild. You can use the same principles weeds use to attract and feed worms, without sacrificing neatness. Here's how. First, mulch heavily. A thick layer of organic mulch mimics what weeds do, protecting soil, keeping it moist, and slowly feeding worms as it breaks down. Second, leave the clippings. Instead of bagging grass clippings, let them decompose naturally on the lawn to provide food and cover. So, here's something to keep in mind. Grow worm-friendly plants like clover, comfrey, and alfalfa. These plants not only fix nitrogen, but they've also got deep roots, and honestly, they feed worms beautifully. And you'll want to avoid chemicals like pesticides, herbicides, and synthetic fertilizers, because those can really harm both the worms and the microbes they rely on. Another thing is, compost weeds the smart way. Don't just toss all your weeds out. If you compost them properly, they'll actually turn into, like, worm-attracting gold for your soil. With just these simple tweaks, you can totally enjoy a neat garden, and at the same time, a thriving underground worm colony. So, do worms really prefer weeds over grass? Yes, but not for the reasons you think. They're not choosing weeds, they're choosing life-rich soil. Weeds just happen to create that environment naturally, while manicured lawns often fight against it. If you want more worms, stop thinking about what's on the surface and start focusing on what's happening underground. Keep the soil moist, shaded, and full of organic matter, and your worm population will explode. So next time you see a few weeds pop up, maybe think twice before pulling them all out. Your worms might just thank you for it.